Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so
America is, and always will be, a nation of immigrants who strive to support the nation's people and economy. From the Irish and Chinese immigrants of the mid-1800s to the Latin American immigrants of today, America has relied upon the cheap immigrant labor force. Though America has been open to all for centuries, America has not always, in turn, supported its immigrants. Discrimination and prejudice have followed immigrants throughout their history in America, and these problems still continue today.
In 1845, the Great Potato Famine ravaged Ireland and destroyed most of the country's potato crops. The result was a period of mass emigration to North America. Due to the Irish's lack of skill, poor education, and minimal economic state, they assumed the jobs that no one else wanted. Although the Irish immigrants contributed to the rapidly growing industrial movement through working jobs in the construction and manufacturing industries, the Americans rejected them in society for multiple reasons.
The Irish were seen as being poor, which they were largely. They spoke English, but they spoke with a very heavy accent, very heavy brogue, and a lot of people didn't understand what they were saying. You know, they wore slightly different clothes. They tended to settle together, and as many immigrant groups do, and so that created some suspicion and some fear among people who'd been here.
Signs were everywhere saying that no Irish need apply for specific jobs, and the Irish were forced to live in shanties and cellars. The Chicago Post once published in an article, "The Irish fill our prisons, our poorhouses. Scratch a convict or a pauper, and the chances are that you tickled the skin of an Irish Catholic. Putting them on a boat and sending them home would end crime in this country." This sort of discrimination continued on for the better part of a decade.
In the mid-1860s, America turned to Chinese immigrants for cheap labor to build the Transcontinental Railroad. Many Chinese people traveled to California during the gold rush of 1849 to seek their fortune in America. The Chinese were very effective workers, enduring the harsh labor conditions. Despite their hard work, the Chinese were faced with harsh treatment from Americans. As white workers were paid $35 and given free board, the Chinese were paid only $24 and were expected to pay for their board and other expenses. They were also racially attacked for cultural practices such as eating rice and drinking tea. In October of 1871, 500 Chinese immigrants were attacked, and 20 laundries and businesses were burned down during the Chinese massacre in San Francisco, California. This violence soon caused the U.S. Congress to take action by passing the Chinese Exclusion Acts of 1882. These acts barred immigration from China and penalized those who helped these immigrants enter the country. Although later legislation was passed to help improve this situation, it did not stop racial discrimination that would continue in the 21st century.
Cesar Chavez, a former labor rights activist for the United Farm Workers, once said, "In the old days, miners would carry birds with them to warn against poison gas. Hopefully, the birds would die before the miners. Farm workers are society's canaries." This poor treatment of foreign workers is particularly prevalent in today's agricultural industry, for many Latin American immigrants are mistreated as they work in the fields. The abuse of Latino immigrants can be seen through the experiences of workers in Immigrant, a farm in southern Florida. In 2003, tomato pickers on this farm made only 40 cents for each bucket they picked, and each bucket weighed 32 pounds. An individual had to pick 125 of these buckets of tomatoes just to make $50 a day. According to the Coalition of Immigrant Workers, fast food companies agreed to increase worker wages by 74%, but the Florida Tomato Growers Exchange held back $1.5 million by refusing to increase the wages. As seen here, the immigrants' vital labor is not reflected in their pay. Also, employers have greatly abused Latinos' health in the workplace. Pedro Zepien, a Latino vegetable worker, commented on the unhealthy conditions in the fields, stating some full days would go by and they would never bring the bathrooms. They give us the water they use to irrigate the fields. Furthermore, the children of the workers are threatened by their parents' exposure to unhealthy conditions. Felipe Franco, the son of a woman exposed to dangerous pesticides, was born without limbs, a result of his mother's unhealthy working conditions. What Americans don't realize is that foreign labor is one of the biggest trading factors in the country. Immigrants contribute $3.5 billion to the nation's economy each year. A recent study found that Mexican immigration was responsible for creating 70,000 jobs in Los Angeles County alone between 1970 and 1980. When 1,000 unemployed American citizens were offered the positions in the fields in a survey conducted by the United Farm Workers Union, only 3 out of the 1,000 people were willing to accept these jobs. If the Latino immigrants were not working in the fields, the crops would never reach the tables of American families.
Maria Isabel Vasquez Jimenez was a victim of the migrant labor system. After the death of her father, 17-year-old Maria was smuggled into America in order to support her family. One day, she worked for 9 hours straight without water and shade in the 95-degree heat while pruning grapes. She collapsed in the field. Her employers disguised the true case of her injury from clinic officials in order to protect themselves from legal trouble. She died of a heat stroke, 2 months pregnant. Maria de Los Angeles Colunga, the owner of Merced Farm Labor, was sentenced to 3 years of probation, 40 community service hours, and a fine of $370. Colunga's brother, former safety coordinator, Elias Armento, was charged with 480 community service hours, 5 years of probation, and a fine of $1,000. The death of Maria Isabel Vasquez Jimenez has sparked a tenacious push from her family to greaten the sentence of her employers, and ultimately resist the ongoing oppression of American employers. In the past, resistance has ultimately led to the assimilation of immigrants into American society. Although the Irish did not stage any formal protests or riots, they sometimes had violent confrontations with other Americans. In 1844, there were many violent confrontations between American nativists and Irish immigrants in Philadelphia. These informal confrontations established a level of respect for the Irish immigrants, which eased their assimilation. The Chinese, however, had a much harder time assimilating into society. For the Chinese, resistance meant going against the government by bringing in workers from China. This spirit has carried over into the court case surrounding the tragedy of Maria Isabel Vasquez Jimenez's death. Cases such as this should result in hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines and several years of jail time. Maria's family recognized this. Her brother said, "Justice failed us. We hope for a stronger sentence so the farm employers could learn to respect farm workers. My sister is in my heart, and I feel sad that nothing was done to punish those who led to her death. For them, Maria Isabel was only another farm laborer whom they could replace easily. For us, the loss was eternal."
To accomplish this goal, however, the United States needs an easier naturalization process, which would focus on the assimilation of immigrants in addition to the creation of fair and comprehensive labor reform. Some actions have already been taken to achieve this desired result. The Supreme Court generally has tried to ensure the assimilation of immigrants in multiple court cases. These court cases, as well as federal laws such as the Bilingual Education Act, show a pro-immigrant federal policy which helps migrant laborers attain key benefits. However, efforts by the state governments often contradict efforts by the national government. Arizona SB 1070, which was passed in the summer of 2010, was an effort by the Arizona state government to curb illegal immigration. Though the national government did sue over the bill, the suit has yet to end. If the national government loses the suit, it could potentially damage U.S. immigrant relations.
The journey to ultimate immigrant naturalization has been a long one, filled with struggles along the way, but ultimately resulting in cultural contributions to the colorful array of American national identity. The Irish brought their Catholic faith to the nation and used their religion as a way to assimilate into society. The Chinese integrated their work skills and culture by establishing laundry businesses, barber businesses, and restaurants suited to the American tastes. Now it is the Latino immigrants' turn to carry out this tradition of assimilation. But to do that, legislative action is needed. A policy that would help make assimilation easier and work more on naturalization rather than deportation would therefore help the relation between the U.S. and immigrants and repair the U.S.'s immigrant culture. Immigrants need legal protection in order to continue to contribute to the changing and growing American culture and national identity.
Sus estrellas